we've got to sketch the graph of y equals 1 over x and then y equals negative 4 over x. Well, you can see they're very linked. So in a way, once we've got the shape of y equals 1 over x, to get to this one, to get to the second one, it's going to be relatively easy. Now, you may have forgotten the shape of y equals 1 over x, and I'm going to show you a very quick technique to get that shape back so that you can get full marks in this question. You need to know 4 things. What's going to happen to y when x gets very large in a positive direction? What's going to happen to y when x gets very large in a negative direction? And just to fill in, what happens to y when x is 0 and what happens to y when x is 1 or minus 1? And now let me set up 4 columns for the answers we're going to pop in before we sketch it. So even though I'm going to explain this in detail, the thought process that you go through should be quite quick. So let's first of all have a look at column 1. If x was, say, 5, the value of y would be 1 over 5. If x was 100, you'd get 1 over 100. If x was 1,000, you'd get 1 over 1,000. So you can see where we're going. As x is getting massively positive, y is becoming and tending towards 0. So on the graph, as x is going massively positive, so we're going up along this axis, y is tending from a value and getting smaller and smaller. So we're coming down here. So we can pop that result up here. Now let's have a look when x is very negative. Well, these results we've got here are just going to turn negative. But the end result is the same, because when we're dealing with really, really massive number on the denominator, even though it is a tiny bit negative, it's heading towards 0. We're heading along here on the x-axis, but as x gets larger and larger in a negative sense, the graph tends towards 0. So we're heading up here. Okay, let's clear the decks of those results and consider when x is 0. When x is 0, y equals 1 over 0. Now, if you put that into a calculator, it would give you an excuse for not calculating it. And the reason it's giving you an excuse is because 1 over 0 is undefined, or you can think about it like that 0 will go into 1 an infinite amount of times. So the value for y when we're on the axis is way up there, or indeed way down there. Both are true. So we can put the result here that when x is 0, y is equal to, well, let's say infinity rather than undefined. To complete the shape, let's do these x is equal to plus 1, x is equal to minus 1. X is equal to 1. Well, that's fairly easy. Y is equal to 1. X is equal to negative 1. Y also is very easy to calculate. This would be negative 1. Or we can put those two results on our graph straight away. Now, with a tablet and pen, this is more difficult than you would find using a pencil and a piece of paper. But I'll make an attempt. The graph comes down here, through that point, and heads off towards 0 and does the reverse down here. Something like that. Now, even though this is not totally necessary, because you should recognize this as a perfectly standard transformation of this 1 over x graph, I'm going to go through the same process I've done here a little bit more quickly, just to give you an idea of that this can also help when you've got a graph like this to plot. Okay, we'll just try some values. Well, you can see that y is tending to 0, but from a negative direction. So if y is negative, we're down here, but it's tending to 0. So the graph is going to be doing that. Okay, if x is negative, all of these effectively turn positive. So yet again, we're heading towards 0, and I can say that y is heading towards 0 here, but we're heading from a positive direction. So from a positive value of y, we're heading towards 0. I think you're going to get the idea quite quickly. Well, this is the same. If x is 0, yes. Y is undefined. Well, let's write that as infinity here. And the other two results are easy, because when x is 1, y is negative 4. And when x is negative 1, y is positive 4. So we can plot them. So with that information, we should be able to sketch the curve. And that is your answer. But as I was saying, because these two curves were hugely linked, we're doing a transformation from the original. We're multiplying it by -1, which will flip the whole curve. Where it was positive, it becomes negative. So this section will come down here, and this section will go up here. And we're stretching it by a factor of 4. So this original point that was 1, 1 now becomes 1, negative 4. And this point that was originally negative 1, negative 1 turns positive and is also multiplied by 4. In a way, you didn't need to go through this second analysis here, because just by transforming the original curve, you should have been able to get to the curve that they wanted. But anyway, there is your answer, and that's how the examiners would want it to be presented.